Good morning. It's Wellness Wednesday. I'm Beth Copeland with Georgia Christian Business Network, and we're putting God back in business. Listen, we're praying blessings over us all today. God has a plan, and we are part of that plan. So we want you to know that you are here on purpose for a specific purpose, and it's not by chance. We're thanking God for just showering us in his blessings today. This program is going forth, and we rebuke any interactions in technology and otherwise in the name of Jesus. Okay? Because we've had a few challenges, but we are here. So it's Wellness Wednesday, and I understand the interruptions. I understand the distractions because all month long on Wellness Wednesday, we've been discussing overcoming fear to experience the double in your life. Last week, we discussed overcoming the fear of failure. This week, I'm really, truly excited to discuss overcoming the fear of success. What I want to do, and I'm going to pass it to my other three co-hosts to introduce themselves as we normally do. I'm still excited. I still haven't come down that we have two new additions, Pamela Bridgman Bartell and myself, Beth Copeland. We have two additions to our Wellness Wednesday platform. And I love how my personal assistant, Bianca, named us the Fantastic Four. And we cannot wait for you to really just embrace what we have in the strength of Wellness Wednesday. So Pamela, I believe you're adjusted. Okay, so I'm going to pass it over to you. When it comes back to me, I want to speak just for a second about the year of the double at Georgia Christian Business Network. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining us here on Zoom. We've got some faces here, and we're excited about that. But for those of you that are joining on Facebook through the stream, we appreciate you as well. And for those that even will watch the replay. We're good, Pamela?
My name is Pamela Bridgman Bartell, and I'm so excited to be here despite the challenges with my technology. I am a licensed clinical social worker. I also hold credentials as a certified addictions counselor and a certified clinical trauma professional. I'm an ordained minister and a United States Air Force veteran, and I am the owner of the Healing Journey Counseling and Consultation here in Northwest Georgia. I've been providing compassionate care since 1976.
Awesome. Popcorn.
I'm Jessica Banner. I have a master's in rehabilitation counseling, which is also professional counseling, with some just background in working with disability and the vocational side of that also. I spent 10 years working in the mental health field until I switched gears and went to pastoral counseling the last 5 years, where I helped develop a counseling department and have done a lot of equipping and training and developing curriculum to equip the body and train others how to help people well. So I'm passionate about that and excited to be here today.
Awesome.
I'm Christine Oswald. I'm a professional Christian life coach. I have a master's in marriage and family therapy with specializations in Christian sex therapy and Christian spiritual formation spirituality. I'm the owner of Real Conversations Christian Life Coaching and Consulting, and we're really glad y'all are here.
Awesome, 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 awesome. And as I promised you, I want to just speak to you for just a quick second. And I'm going to utilize our challenges with going live today to just tell you about the year of the double. This is the year of the double. And it's so important that as you press in to experience the double for your life, for your business, that you understand that challenges are going to come. And although you may feel like, well, I'm prepared, I'm here early, and I've tried 2 times, I've tried 3 times, God has another way. But we have to make sure that we press in to experience and to know that we've already won. We may not be winning in the direction that we're trying, and we're trying to force that direction and force that direction. And God said, I've got another plan. So I want you to listen today as we talk about overcoming the fear of success, because there's a great number of people, as I said on my live, there's a great number of people that really fear failure. But I'm going to ask these clinicians to help me today, because I honestly believe that there's an even greater number that's afraid and fear success. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And you may not recognize it as the fear of success. You may have named it something else or camouflaged it. I just didn't even know there was a such, as I didn't years ago. But there is a such. So I'm going to pass to Pamela for a recap of last week, and then we'll get directions for how we're going to unpack this thing today. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the very first week of the month, we actually talked about the fear of the unknown and recognizing that the fear of the unknown really is about fear of change, and talked about why it is that we fear change, which has a lot to do with, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen when we get there. And we've grown accustomed to not just accustomed and not just being set in our ways, but we know what it is that we can do. We can currently do. We have no idea what is going to happen when we change. And so the fear of the unknown. And then last week, we talked about fear of failure. And do either of you have any specific things, Jessica, Beth, or Christine, that stuck out for you when we talked about the fear of failure last week?
I think one of the things that I took away was kind of all the different layers and how it can be, it's so individual for each of us, but it kind of all goes down to shame.
Yes.
And what that means and looks like for each of us in our own specific flavor of it.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what I wanted to emphasize, what Christine just pointed out, is that often that fear of failure has to do with shame. And for those of us who are Christ followers, it's so important for us to remember that, yes, there are times we need to feel guilty because guilt leads us to repentance. But as far as shame, no. God says that he's taken our shame. There's a verse in Isaiah that I really like where God talks about where he promises Isaiah concerning the nation of Israel that there will be no more shame. Jesus bore our shame on the cross. So yeah, feel guilty, but don't allow that to beat you up. Allow that to lead you to repentance and move on. And so this week, we're talking about the fear of success. And I just want to kind of lay some foundation for our conversation. And then I'm going to pitch it over to Beth, because she has some stuff, first of all, in talking about the year of the double. But last week, she also mentioned that she has some very probably interesting things that for us to focus on concerning the fear of success. But so mainly the fear of success is a concern that once we achieve something new, we might not be able to sustain it, or that we might actually suffer because of it. And oftentimes we aren't even aware that we have this particular fear. And what's important to recognize is that it's not really the fear of success itself, but is the fear that is centered on the potential consequences of the success. because expectations of success are often based on the idea that achieving your goal means making, listen to this, making sacrifices or enduring losses. It's not surprising that people may be wary of what success might ultimately cost them. In other words, it's not that you think you're incapable of succeeding. It's more about the fear of the change that comes and whether or not you're up to it.
Wow.
Can I sustain it rather? Am I up to this success? And what are people going to think about me when I succeed? Are they going to think I'm that uppity person? You know, what are people going to think about me? So in some ways, it's like the fear of the unknown, right? This fear of change. Beth.
Oh, I'm so excited. I've been waiting on this all month. I love how God has uniquely fitted each of us together as a team here. And I love the way Pamela comes up with the topics. We've got the topics for July and August, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so excited. I saw some exchange between Bianca and Pamela over yesterday. I caught up last night and I was like, oh, I can't wait. And I still love Take Charge Tuesday, and I believe it's powerful and just as unique because it gives us that business acumen that we need to glean from these powerful business owners. But we've got to come behind it continually on Wellness Wednesday to undergird and to support what we're putting out there on Tuesday so that we can operate in business. Because in essence, it's something I read Bianca posted, our emotional and mental well-being is equally as important to operating in business. So Pamela's passed the mic to me because I've been, she has to pull the reins with me because y'all know something, I'm gonna be transparent. I don't get the notes for the entire month like Jessica and Christine are privy to. I have to get a week by week because I'm kind of like being disciplined because I'll get so far ahead where I'll read a note from the end of the month and I'll bring it into the first session. So that's the way they handle me, but I'm good with that. But I've been waiting on this one and I've been really good, I think, in holding my tongue on this one. And I'll tell you why this one is so important. For years, I have experienced this and I've been stuck with this one. And I'm hoping some people will get free today because honestly, I didn't even realize that there was a such. Maybe y'all are saying, really? Yeah, but really, and I believe there's just as many people out there still as I was that didn't recognize. This is where I want to start off is Isaiah 43:19 through 21. And I'm going to read it to you. And okay, so I'm coming from King James, but look it up in any variation, transition. What am I trying to say? Translation that you prefer. Okay. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall ye not know it? Hear that. Shall ye not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. The beasts of the field shall honor me, the dragons and the owls, because I give waters in the wilderness and rivers in the desert to give drink to my people, my chosen. This people I have formed for myself. They shall show forth my praises, my praise. So this is the deal. The fear of success is the fear of a new thing. Now, this is where it gets you. It's because you're asking God for the double. You're asking God for more in your life. You're asking him to do something that you haven't experienced before. But it comes down to the fact that when he starts to transition you into that direction, what happens is because shall ye not know it? Remember that piece? Shall ye not know it? I don't know it because I've never experienced it. And so when it starts to take on a different look than what I'm accustomed to, I start to have doubt, not in God's ability to do what he said, to keep his promise. But me, Lord, remember we talked last week or the week before about Moses, and he thought in Acts 7:24 that the people would know. And Pamela, I can't make this stuff up. Who knew she was going to say that on her lead-in? You know, people might not receive me right way. I may not question myself, but others might question. Who do you think you are? What do you think you're doing? Who made you? And then I'm going to get some input in just one other second. And then I need to unpack a little bit about the scripture. So the beasts of the field shall honor me. That never happened. The dragons and the owls. And guess what? But there's purpose in the changes that I'm making, because who's ever experienced waters in the wilderness or rivers in the desert? The desert doesn't have rivers.
Right.
And the whole right. And to give drink to my people, my chosen, the people that are formed to show forth my praise. So here we are. And I'll get into the next one after the girls discuss a little bit about what I've thrown out here, because I've got something and it's so powerful. Carmen said this is a powerful topic, and I've got to run by now. I've got to run now. I'm coming back to watch the replay a little bit later. And so over on the Facebook, thank you, Larissa, for joining us. Good afternoon, Lisa Springer. We got some great activity over there. We've got some awesome support here. Toby, thank you so much to Lisa for being here. And Bianca's always supporting us. So let's talk about this. And I want to share something after we've had some discussion.
You know that I always like to look at biblical case studies, right? So last week we talked about Moses. There are two people I'm thinking about this week. The first one is Gideon. Gideon has such fear of success that he hid himself down in a silo, right? And not only did he hide himself in a silo, he, kind of like Moses, as if God didn't know. Moses told God about his impediment. Well, Gideon told God about where he stood in his family. I'm just the least of us. I can't do this, right? So he had such fear of success. But here's one of the things I like about God, right? To show that the success wasn't in Gideon anyway, he pared down the number of people in Gideon's army, right? And that fear of success became an awe in what God can do. Right. So that's my
Awesome.
first case. That's my first case study. My second, so Gideon's fear of success really had more to do with that first definition I talked about in our lead-in, and that was whether or not he would actually be able to sustain. Am I going to be able to defeat this army? So that was Gideon's fear of success. Here, the next case study is Jonah. Jonah had such a fear of success that he ran in the opposite way.
Mhm.
But Jonah's fear of success was the second one we talked about, and that was he didn't like what the consequences were going to be. He was like, well, God, if I succeed in what you tell me to do, these people are going to get saved. And
He didn't want
I
that.
don't want it, right? So he feared the consequences of his success and ran in another direction. But God has a way. So he has him swallowed up by the big fish, and the big fish spews him out on the place where he's got to succeed. because when God calls us to it, he expects us to do it.
I like that.
And Jonah, despite his fear of success, because he feared what the consequences, or he didn't like what the consequences were going to be, still had to experience that success. Those are just the two kind of case studies I wanted to put before us.
Awesome. Awesome. Where are you on this, Jessica or Christine? Either one. Chime in. Great, Pamela.
Pamela, I loved what you said. When God calls us to it, he expects us to do it. And I think with success, it is loaded because a lot of times we have God's definition of success and the human definition of success. And I think a lot of times this breakdowns at that level. This breaks down at that level. Where if God calls me to it, well, now we're in a different category than am I striving to get my own fleshly needs met by the world's definition of success? And in both of the case studies you gave, God called them to something which was terrifying for each of them, and he got the glory for it. While a lot of times I think when we're striving for success for, fleshly reasons, for lack of a better way of putting it, to get our own ego needs met, to try to heal our own trauma outside of God's will and calling, then we're kind of in a different category. And sometimes I think he thwarts that success so that we can come back into a surrendered, willing relationship with him where his economy becomes our economy. So I loved your examples. I love what you said.
Awesome.
I love that you chose Gideon too. Gideon's one of my favorites. He's been a very personal character in my own journey with the Lord, but I always come back there. But I love that because one of the things as we were preparing for today that really stuck out to me as I was sitting with the Lord about this was the impact of family origin when we talk about the fear of success. And that's exactly what you just said about Gideon, right? Like how he talked about his position in his family, but so often with myself, with people I've worked with people I talk to, when you talk about this fear of success, most people don't walk around going, I'm afraid to succeed. They know they're afraid to fail, but they don't know that there's this fear of success because it tends to be much more subversive and subconscious in a sense. And so when I think about family of origin, a lot of people wrestle with a couple things about family origin, right? They may wrestle with negative messages that may have come out of some verbal and emotional things that were spoken over them. We talk about curses in the Bible, but our own families can speak that. Right. There can be word curses from our family that have kind of spoken against our success. And we come up against those when we talk about fear of success. You also come up against things like, I lost it. Hold on. With family origin, you're dealing with breaking out of that generational pattern. Sometimes the places the Lord has called you to is to new places. There are mantles that families carry generationally, but God may be asking you to do something in a new way or do a new thing, or he may place a new mantle. And it means doing something that's outside of family norms and family dynamics, which are one of the most powerful forces on the earth outside of the Lord. Is the power of family norms. And so when you're asked to go to a new thing, I know we talked about Moses. Abraham did that, right? God called him to a new thing. That we're getting into a different space, but he had to step outside of what was known, and people are going to react to that. Family members are going to have a response when you disrupt family norms, when you do something different. And just like Pamela said, there can be that fear of they're going to think I'm better than them. They're going to think I'm not, that I think I'm elevating myself when really there's the elevation of the Lord. And that's hard because we're dealing with the hearts of our family members and where they are with the Lord. Because sometimes the Lord has given us a revelation that our family hasn't received, or they haven't been able to receive for some reason or another. And there's this tension in the in-between of, I've been given this revelation and this call of the Lord. So there's that fear of success. And that leads to the second part of that, which is the fear of consequence. And that's especially powerful when we talk about our family of origin.
Right.
If the fear of the consequences, I'm going to lose relationship, I'm going to lose love, I'm going to lose acceptance from my family, I may lose connection. There's a lot of fear of those losses when we talk about consequences. And because those things are so highly integrated, where those norms versus the fear of, if I step out and do this new thing, what will particularly my family think? That can be true beyond our family, with friends and community and all these other places. But the thing that's so rooted in us is that family of origin. And so those were just my initial thoughts as I leaned in today. And I thought Gideon's a great choice for that.
Mhm.
I am so loving this. And I'm telling you, our Facebook is popping over there. There's about 4 or 5, and then even here, some comments that I want to get to. But before I go there, I want to just acknowledge this, the presence of the Holy Spirit, because we do not rehearse this, and there is no way for us to be in sync like this lest God was in the mix. And so I thank him for the presence of his Holy Spirit, because I know this is urgent. This is an urgent matter here to us, propelling forward to experience the double. Okay, so Pamela put out Gideon. I've got another one for you. Esther. Because, and then we're going to go back and we're going to uncover. So get your questions ready, okay? Because I know you're going to have them for us, and we're going to help you with this, okay? Because what Esther came, you talk of family of origin, okay? We already know. We don't have time to go into the history. Most of you are already familiar. But where we're going to pick up right now is she's already been chosen as queen. But even as we go to the double and you've experienced a level of success, that you moved beyond what your family culture looked like, and you decided, okay, God means me, and I got to be the one that goes ahead of my family. I'm thinking her tribe, okay? She's got to go ahead of her family so that she could be in place to free the family. So you've got to get the right perspective that God chose you. Embrace it, accept it, stop trying to justify, trying to figure out why he chose you. There's purpose. He knew what he had placed within you. Not comparing yourself with the other family members, not looking even at your past, at the things that I came up, my parents are not here. My older cousin raised me, all of that stuff. Get beyond that. God chose you for such a time as this. The thing that I want you to recognize too, as when we go through the opportunities for next level, there will be a challenge before you. And you may question, once you got to this comfort level of success as Esther had, I'm queen, I'm in the palace, I'm going to send you some clothing. I'm going to send some stuff to help you guys out. I'm going to even pray and fast for you. No, God, the fear of success is once we receive the authority, we've got to learn to walk in the authority. Somebody tracking with me? Because see, this is the deal. This is the deal. I looked it up. So I want to say, when Esther's eunuchs and female attendants came and told her about Mordecai, she was in great distress. So you have that level of compassion. And she sent the clothes. She sent to put on instead of his sackcloth. And he wouldn't accept them. And then Esther summoned Hattak, one of the king's eunuchs assigned to attend her, in order to find out what in the world is troubling. And that's what God wants each of us to do, is to find out what is the trouble. And once we find out, and it comes, and you know that it's of God, then you've got to address it. And she said, I can't come before the king because he hadn't summoned me. But you got the power. God placed you there, and you've got to exercise your authority. Okay? So now what we find ourselves is if we've made that opportunity to a certain level of success, don't get comfortable.
Right.
God wants to do the double. Ladies, talk to me. I'm going to introduce it, and I think it's a good time for me to do what I want to talk about. And some of you are on the call. I know Delisa's here. She's going to be very familiar with what I'm going to talk about because she's one of my previous coaching clients. And the opportunity that the first engagement that I do, or I did, because I don't coach as much anymore, is I would introduce them to a poem. And you ladies are definitely familiar with it already. And it's The Greatest Fear. And this is not a political anything when I say this name, okay? Mariam Williamson, okay, is the author of this poem. And I have my son, Bianca, your husband, introduced me to this poem years ago when he was in high school. And Romy's 32 now, and he'll be 33 soon. And that was what, I don't know, some 15, 20 years ago. And this is it. This is it. What I want to share with you is our deepest fear. And again, by Mariam Williamson, it says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be? Brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous. Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your plan small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We're all meant to shine as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's just not in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we're liberated from our fear, our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. That poem, I believe everyone should start, and y'all clinicians push back a little bit on me, but I think you ought to start at about 2 or 3, learning to memorize and embrace and get it ingrained within your spirit, man. Our deepest fear. And I believe, having told you my case study from the Bible is Esther, is for Beth Copeland. Here I go, totally transparent. I'd get so far. And I'd fear success because of everything that the ladies have been talking about this morning. Because people around me, when I stepped into ministry and my calling, not even having a clue what I was even doing and where he was calling me to, I lost all my friends. One of them told me my baby was ugly. I let her read it prematurely. And she was like, what is this? You're talking about my first book. She's like, you're talking about yourself. That's all I read. You know, I'm crushed, you know, and I have somebody say, what's a God's people ministry? You know, the thing that we fear is that God has called us to a greater level of success, but our fear is we're unqualified. And our fear is, what about the others? Everybody can't go where God is taking you. And the fear is, what if, hear me, not God fails, but what if I fail God? What if I say to him, you chose the wrong person? Oh my God. Talk to me, ladies, because my ending to transition out is God's not concerned about your capabilities. God's more concerned about your ability to surrender to him. He said, I got you covered. I can do all things through Christ. He said, I am omnipotent. You don't need anything but to submit and surrender. What do you think, ladies? Talk to me. I got a lot of feedback. Do you want that, or what, you want to go
Now,
from
what's
here?
going on over on
Oh gosh.
Facebook and
Oh
here?
gosh. Okay. So Lisa says the calling is definitely a struggle, especially when you are the only one that have heard the calling. Others do not understand nor support it. Larissa says God's level of success versus man's definition of success. So good. We want God's perspective on success. That's where the fruit is. And then she goes on in another post to say, we come against all word curses in the name of Jesus. We will be everything God has called us to be and do. Then Lisa says, yes, teach on that family dynamic. How do we overcome that family norm? How do we get the family on board? Then we say, Lisa says, I think there is also fear of what is expected of you. To whom much is given, much is expected. Status quo complacency can feel comparable. Yeah, Esther, but also very safe on the surface. And then Larissa pointed to Jessica. You're hitting on a powerful topic. Are we willing to step into God's mantle for our lives rather than holding on to family norms and expectations? And then Bianca posted the poem, Our Deepest Fear by Marianne Williamson. Go for it, ladies. Help us out.
Well, I was just thinking when you were reading that poem, you know, that first line, that it is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. And the thing that immediately struck me was that makes perfectly good sense, because we've talked so much in the last several weeks about the fear of the unknown. But the thing about fear is that fear is actually rooted in our experience, right? The development of fear is rooted in the experience that we know and that we have. And so the things that we come to fear have some connection to what we've been through. When we talk about the fear of light and what we don't know, it's because we have no real context for that. You know, that like last week we were talking about having that, why it's so important to have such a deep revelation of who God is. Therefore, we have a deep revelation of who we are, because that's the anchor of knowing what we're stepping into, even though what we may go into is the unknown, because the truth that I can hold on to is, well, this is who God says I am. And so I can go forward in this thing that he's called me to. But it just really struck me that it's fear. We can wrap our head around the darkness because and that fear, because that's part of the experience that we've had. And the other thing that kind of struck me with that too was, we also, in the fear of success, I think we also kind of wrestle with this relationship between, we're human, and so we're constantly having to be very intentional about navigating self-reliance versus reliance on God. And we can be anointed, we can be called, we can take the action to those things. But the relationship we have to garner is that we can never lose partnership with the Lord to step into those things. Because the truth in the unknown is that we can't do those things without him. You know, he's put things in us, and we may have a measure of success according to the world, and even in the things he's given us in the spirit. But to be at the fullness of the success he anticipates for us, we can't do that without partnership with him. But in our humanity, in our trauma, in our woundedness, just in even our own free will, we do constantly walk out having to be every day intentional about. It's so easy to slip into self-reliance, and self-reliance honestly breeds more fear of success. Because if I'm dependent on my resources, I don't know about you, but yesterday I was exhausted. If I was dependent on my own resources yesterday, I'd have had no success. But I saw 4 clients yesterday. I had success because I wasn't just rooted in myself, right? And so when we get into self-reliance, we actually become more fearful of success because we recognize there are limitations to ourselves. So I think that's also why it's so important to have that partnership with the Lord, because we don't reach that fullness of success without that partnership, because it's really his work and his glory. So
A Apart from the vine, we
Awesome.
can do nothing.
Yeah,
Apart from the
that
vine, we can do
partnership
nothing. Mhm.
is definitely, definitely important. There's a couple of points I want to sort of, as we're moving toward our conclusion, there are a couple of things I want us to discuss. And the first is that the fear of success can be confused with the fear of failure, because both of them, either of them, keep us from reaching our full potential. Fear of failure has to do with beating yourself up when you think you just didn't do it right. Whereas fear of success is more about anticipating how other people will react to your triumph, right? Fear of failure, beating yourself up because you feel like you bummed out. Fear of success, anticipating how other people will respond to your triumph. What are they going to think about you actually doing well? And then there's this thing that's called the Jonah complex, which is based on the case study that I talked about. And it is the fear of success or the fear of being one's best. And it prevents you from self-actualization. It prevents you from realizing your full potential. It's the fear of, like that poem said, it's the fear of one's own greatness, the evasion rather of one's destiny, or the avoidance of exercising one's talent. Did you get that? It is the fear of one's greatness, the evasion of one's destiny, or the avoidance of exercising your talent.
Wow. Wow. The avoidance of exercising your talent. I've got another. We really probably should have taken a couple of weeks to talk about this, maybe back to back on this particular one. But I want to introduce one other thing. In kind of trying to pull it to summation here is 1 Corinthians 2:9. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, ear hath not heard, neither has it entered into the heart of man, the things that God has prepared for those who love him. And so, but it goes on to say, and I didn't pull up 10, but I know it goes on to say, but God has revealed them to us through his spirit, and the spirit searches the deep things of God. And the reason I pulled it up is because I wanted to see it other than the way I quoted it was King James. And I was looking for ESV. And for some reason, this particular site didn't bring it up. So I went ahead and quoted it from King James. Gosh, I was looking for a different way to tell you that, but let me just go with this, what I've said, okay? The issue is we're looking for something that we've seen. We're looking for something that we've heard, but because we know if you start looking at Ecclesiastes, there's nothing new under the sun. And we already know all that. But see, we get it confused when God starts to do and introduce a uniqueness. Listen, God has chosen you. When I say that verse, God has Jeremiah 29:11, born out of that God has a plan and you're a part of it. It's just like Esther, Esther hadn't a clue. Her humble beginnings, they started off talking about family origin. Who knew they were going there? They didn't know. I've been teasing them all last 3 weeks of what I was saving. They already knew a different way that God brought them to where I am today. What I'm trying to tell you is that vision that God has given unto you, that God specifically chose you to carry it through because he knew what he had placed within you. And you're looking for approval, for someone to give you permission. And God's already done that. He's given you permission. And in the terms of my son that says this, and Bianca can attest to it, go be great. is what we want to say today. This is the year of the double. And you have to take these 6 characteristics that I'm more sure today than ever, than December when he gave them to me, that they are essential. Today, we're all over the U and uniquely unified. But what are they, starting with the acronym for double? Decidedly disciplined, optimally obedient, obeying God even when it doesn't look right, when it doesn't sound right, when the account doesn't match what he's challenging you to do, because he says, if it's my vision, then I own the provision. And what did Pamela's little thing that I'll be figuring out and using it over and over again? If he said for you to do it, what was that you said? Where is that? I was looking for the note on it.
If he
If God,
brings you to, if he
say it.
brings you, if he brings you to it, he wants you to do it.
If he brings you
expects you
to it, he
do
wants, he expects you to do it. The thing that we have to understand is that we have to be uniquely unified, because if Esther hadn't been in the presence of Mordecai, she'd have missed her opportunity, because someone would have said, those that were a little concubines that are around, you know, and the little eunuchs, and we're all here in the king council, let them worry about what they got going on here. We done made it, honey. No, it's not about you, but you need to be in the presence or those that are going to challenge you and bring out the greatness. And sometimes it's not going to always look pretty. You're going to have to take some risk, whether he's extended the golden scepter or not. You're going to have to move forward because you believe God is taking you into a wealthy place and he wants you to experience this double. So that's why the boldly believing is, God, if you said it, that settles it. Whether I agree or not, whether it looks right or not. Because my eyes haven't seen, my ears haven't heard all that you want to do for me. And then I got to love limitlessly beyond what my critics are saying, my family dynamics. Sometimes you have to leave them so you can go ahead. And then one day, perhaps, maybe not, they'll understand that you had to go on. Because now, like Joseph, you're saving much people alive.
Mm-hmm.
Genesis 50:20. The thing that we have to understand, if we're going to ever experience the double, and you pave the way with the first 5, you got to excellently execute. When I approached Jessica and Christine about joining Pamela and I hadn't seen, ear hadn't heard. I said, I don't know if they're going to want to do it. In fact, honestly, where I've gotten to today, I just do it. I just do it because he's taught me that. And then I had the nerve to ask them well, you got to join my network and you got to be a sponsor at that. Oh, God. And what did they say? Yes. You're knocking on the wrong doors. You're trying to attach to people that God hasn't assigned to you because you think they got 3,000 or 5,000 followers on Facebook, and that's who you need to be attached to. Yeah, little old GCBN is a great place. Okay, ladies, you got 5 minutes. Talk to me. And there's some stuff going on around over there, but we're going to let you kind of wrap it for us, okay?
I know on the Facebook feed, there was a question about how do we address those family of origin issues. And I'm going to also broaden it to cultural issues. There are some cultures where to be successful, you have to be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer. Others that, you know, our people do this, if you do that. Now, it's more than just family. It's like you are now stepping outside of our culture, our people. So this is huge. If insight without behavior change is meaningless, then behavioral action without insight, I think, is emotionally and relationally dangerous. At worst, at best, it will lead to burnout. So some questions to take to the Lord and journal. I want to leave something practical because any single woman out there and a whole lot of men, if you're called to anything business, imposter syndrome will rear its ugly head. It does, because we know we're not enough. We know we need a God at some primal level. So some good questions to just kind of get started would be, what did you have to do in your family to be loved? What did you have to do?
Whoa.
What did you have to do to have value? Start with, what happened to me when I succeeded at school? What happened to me at home when I succeeded? What happened to me when I failed? What happened at home when I failed? What happened in my school? What happened with my friends? What narratives did I receive around success? What narratives did I succeed around failure? And then as you start to journal and list those before the Lord, give it as part of your act of worship to Him. Then say, do I agree with those? Do I receive those as truth? Because a lot of this stuff is so unconscious that by taking it from the conscious to the conscious, well, now we can take it before God into that light. And we can say, okay, do I agree with this message? Oh, some of us had family or friends or one mentor that, man, they told us truth and it was spot on. Sometimes we were in families like, the Tower of Babel syndrome. Oh no, if I get too big, God's he's gonna really knock me down. And because we've associated success with things that maybe it wasn't. Maybe the Tower of Babel was about doing it apart from God and not for God, and because God commanded something. So to grow up, one of the verses the Lord brought to my attention during all this is when I was a child, in 1 Corinthians 13, 11 through 12. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. And so many of these things we have to start now looking back at these messages that were our childish messages that we got, and we need to grow them up and bring them before the Lord and reason them now as adults, and allow our adult self, our faith self, to go back and speak to that child self, that fear self, that pleaser self. And so that's a good place to start with looking at family of origin, culture of origin messages.
Excavating those schemas and demolishing them.
Absolutely.
And I would piggyback off that. I think that was wonderful. And those were incredible questions to start exploring with the Lord. And I would encourage you to sort of, as the Lord shows up and helps you answer those questions, and as you start looking at that, don't be afraid to let yourself explore. Do I need to go deeper here? As you're answering those questions, do I need to go deeper? Do I need to get with a mentor or a counselor or a coach to explore some of those things further? Because sometimes when you start jumping into family stuff and asking those questions, you really are rooting out any of the roots that have been placed in your life. And we know that roots lead to fruit. And so, whatever has been rooted there, those are incredible questions to start exploring with the Lord, what roots look like in your life. And so just being in that open posture with the Lord as He may take you on a journey. This may be a journey of growth. It may be a journey of insight. It may be a journey of healing. And so just partnering, let the Lord partner you with the right people if He shows you that that's an extension of where you're going with that. So
yeah, and emphasizing what Jessica is saying, it's important that you do get the root. Oftentimes, I don't know what you know about gardening. If you go out into a garden and there are weeds there, if you just take off the top and don't actually dig in and get up the root, then it just springs back up. And so it's important that you're not just chopping off the top, but actually excavating and completely digging up the root. So as we close, and I know Beth is going to talk about what's coming next week, but I want to talk about identify what's coming next Wednesday. And that is, initially, I didn't have a fourth, and Beth said, no, we need to talk about not just fear, but we need to talk about how to experience the double in spite of your fear. And so that's what we're going to be looking at next week, that you can and you will experience double even no matter what the fear is, whether it's the fear of the unknown, the fear of failure, or the fear of success. God, even in the midst of your fear, will bring you to the double. And that's what we'll discuss next week.
Wow, this has been so very powerful. And I'm not amazed that the enemy tried to disrupt it. You know, honestly, we started a little bit late. We started about 11. I'm in Dallas, guys, with Dr. Jess. And so my time is off a little bit. We started about 12:07 Eastern. And in spite of all that, the enemy tried to interrupt this. And Pamela already told you she had like buku technology issues, but the perseverance, and that's where I want to close before I go into our homework, is be diligent. Don't give up. Continue to show up for our opportunities here on Wellness Wednesday. Show up on Tuesdays and Take Charge Tuesdays, but also make certain that you have an opportunity to join the Wednesday calls because they are essential to propelling you forward. And the thing that I think is important for next week, based upon what Pamela's already shared, is I want you as a coach to go through each of the 6 characteristics that I've listed that make up the double and identify practical real-time issues that you are challenged with. Like, for instance, decidedly disciplined. What are those opportunities that you can improve? For me, decidedly disciplined interpretation is when I go out to a nice restaurant that we're planning to go to out here on Sunday, that I make already in my mind what I'm going to have and not have. This is related to my body. This is related to my A1C. But you also have to make decisions about business. That's why we have core values and visions and things like that to help you determine what is inside or outside the scope of how I do business. Does that make sense? Decidedly disciplined. But you go through the other ones like optimally obedient. You know, I'm going to answer WWJG. What would Jesus do? How am I going to respond? And then uniquely unified. And when you get to the uniquely unified, I want you to answer the question, who are the people that God told me I needed to connect with, but out of fear of not being enough, I didn't. I didn't knock on the doors. What are the opportunities that are still available for me that I need to follow through and connect with people that I didn't think they would receive me. I didn't think I was enough. And then go through all of them. Bianca's posted them. The boldly believing. Where do I need to believe God? He said he wanted to do the double. Where are there doors that he said that were open, but I doubt it? Who are those people that I'm not forgiven? I'm not saying go be best friends with them, but I need to love them and pray for them and make sure that they're not taking up space in my heart, that God wants to put greater things, and they're taking up space in my mind. And then where do I need to not execute, but excellently execute? That's just your homework for next week. Okay, look at that. But next week, I'm so excited, girls. This was awesome. Pamela hung in there to the end. I know I could see she was having a few more challenges, but we're good. We delivered what God told us to do for this week, and we're so thankful. I'm so excited about all the participation over on Facebook. Thank you so very much. If you're comfortable next week, join us over here on Zoom. And for the participation that we had throughout here on Zoom was amazing. Christine, Jessica, you were wonderful. Pamela, outstanding. Bianca, thank you for your continual support to let us just go seamless through all of the challenges. God is so good. Ignoring that spam that was coming at us was really good for all of us. Okay, so next week on Take Charge Tuesday is Janine Hammond, and she's going to talk about Dreams, the sequel. And some kind of way, this is tied to the double. She's one from an artsy side of the house, and we can't wait to welcome her. She is an amazing prayer warrior as well. Prophetess, just such a blessing. Okay, so Wellness Wednesday next week, Overcoming Fear. Pamela's all ready to experience the double part 4, doubling in the midst of fear. And don't forget to visit our website at gcbnetwork.com. While you're there, look at the events, the upcoming opportunities. Go to our GGG page. I would love to invite you ladies to join us for our 8th annual God Golfing Girls event at the beautiful Lake Lanier Resorts. I tell you, visit the website, look for opportunities. If you have any challenges, come to us. Let your requests be made known. We will help you figure a way that you can participate. You have not because you ask not. We just had the clinic last week and it was so much fun. It is so amazing. We're going to get it out to those that are interested in previewing that. May even send it in an email after I look at it and see if it's okay to go out. But at any rate, thank you all so much for joining us. Ladies, I love you guys. I appreciate you all. Remember, God has a plan. And you are a part of it. He wants you to experience the double. Our part is to continually show up. God bless you, ladies. See you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye now.